Your mother who passed away has been begging to tell you something. Archangel Michael says, open this the second you see it. She's closer than you think. And this is her message. Archangel Michael says. The room holds its breath as the hour turns, and a soft hush moves across your skin like the edge of a wing. A presence gathers in the quiet, bright as a candle yet gentler than a lullaby. A message is arriving that has wanted you for so long that even the walls seem to lean forward to hear it. There is a tenderness in the air that feels familiar, a hush that carries the trace of a voice you have known since your first dawn. She has been trying to reach you in the seams between moments, pressing peace into your pauses and courage into your sleep. Tonight that thread is strong enough to be followed by the heart. Her nearness is not a rumor but a soft constant, like a hand on your shoulder guiding you across a street you cannot see. She stands just beyond the thinnest veil of light, not lost, not gone, simply living in the part of the world that sings without a mouth. When you breathe in, you touch the edge of where she is. This is her message, carried in warmth, stitched with memory, and offered without any demand. You will not have to strain to grasp it because it meets you where you are and loves you from the inside out. It is not a riddle and not a test, it is a homecoming written in your own name. She says your life has been heavier than you let on, yet you have kept walking with a quiet courage that no storm could erase. She traces each step with recognition, as if the soles of your shoes were pages she has read by moonlight. She honors the weight that never had a witness. She wants you to know that she has learned the language of your days the way gardeners learn the thirst of flowers. She knows where your breath catches and where your chest tightens and where your laughter hides. She knows because love keeps knowing, even when the world changes rooms. She says there are 3 lanterns she has placed along your path so your feet remember where to go. The first looks like a small memory that comes when you need it most, a good smell in a hard hour, a song arriving on the wind. The second is a stranger's kindness that appears like a bridge where you expected a cliff. The third lantern is your own voice when it is gentler than usual, choosing calm when you could choose thunder. Do not mistake that softness for surrender because it was forged in fire. She says your strength does not always sound loud. Sometimes it sounds like patience turning a key. She remembers your childhood like a constellation she could navigate by touch. She recalls the scrape on your knee, the cup set beside your bed, the laughter in the kitchen that turned hunger into story. She has carried these things with her because they are still alive where she is. She says there was a day when you thought you had lost everything, and she wants to place a ribbon through that memory so it holds without hurting. The ribbon is made of recognition, and it says you endured what you were not meant to understand at the time. It says survival is a form of artistry too. She knows there are photographs you do not look at because the colors seem too loud. She has kissed the corners of those pictures and quieted them, not to erase, but to make room for your breath. She asks you to let one back into the light when you are ready. She says you did enough, even on the days you feared you didn't. You loved in ways that did not announce themselves and offered care in gestures too small for anyone else to see. She noticed every single one and wears them as bright threads in the shawl she brings to you now. She speaks about forgiveness as a river that was already moving, even before you stood near its shore. She does not ask you to throw yourself into it when the water is cold, she only offers a hand to touch its surface. The ripples will do the rest when the day unfolds into trust. She says there were words she wanted to say when the room felt crowded with the unsaid. She wanted to thank you for the way you carried her name into places she could not go. She wanted to praise your stubborn hope that made space for one more sunrise. She says grief has been a stern teacher, yet it has also been a carpenter building a longer table inside your chest. At that table she now sits without weight, without worry, with a patience that tastes like warm bread. She pours you water that never runs out and invites you to rest your elbows. She speaks about your work, the way you give what you give and hide what you hide. She says the gift you thought was small is a lighthouse for someone you do not know yet. Do not shrink the beam because you cannot see every ship it saves. She says your body has heard too many alarms, and the quiet is not a luxury but a necessity. She urges you to grant yourself a portion of slowness each day the way you used to grant her a blanket in the afternoon. 10 minutes of soft light can restore an entire season. She says there is a decision coming that will try to pretend it is urgent. It will demand the speed of panic and the certainty of fear. She asks you to meet it with the measured rhythm of your breathing and the unhurried wisdom of the river that never runs out of time. She says the right door is not always the loudest door. Sometimes the right door is a modest doorway tucked under a branch where robins sing. She asks you to trust the door that opens without bruising your shoulder. She remembers the way you laughed without warning, like a window thrown open to summer. She has stored that sound in a silver bowl and brings it to you now, sparkling and generous. Take from it whenever you need to sweeten a bitter moment. She says you will meet a friend whose compassion arrives like rain on a night that promised nothing. This person will not solve your life, but they will sit where solutions are not needed. Their presence will remind you how to be a person without performance. She says you have carried an old apology in your pocket like a stone. You can set it down now and let the skin of your palm heal. The earth knows what to do with stones that have finished their work. She speaks about the room you dream of, the one filled with soft light and quiet objects that feel chosen. She invites you to make a corner of your current world echo that dream. One plant, one candle, one clean surface can call the future toward you. She says every night the sky writes your name in the ink of stars, and every morning the letters dissolve into daylight that walks beside you. You do not need to earn this companionship because it is made of the same substance as you. It is the gentle architecture that holds you without a seam. She says there is a story you tell about yourself that is too small. That smallness once kept you safe, but now it keeps you lonely. She asks you to write a new line that begins with your fullness and ends with the horizon. She remembers your hands, the way they tried to do more than they were asked, the way they learned the weight of care. She has kissed the places where fatigue lodged like pebbles in your joints. She offers calm to your fingers so the next task feels like a meadow and not a mountain. She says you are allowed to celebrate the quiet wins that rarely get names. The glass of water emptied, the lesson learned by feeling instead of words, the evening you chose rest over worry. These are pearls she strings for you to wear against your pulse. She speaks about the dream that returns like a familiar guest, bringing a scene that is almost a place and almost a memory. She says the dream is a bridge between rooms of yourself that are learning to speak again. She asks you to stand on that bridge and wave to both shores. She says fear sometimes arrives dressed as responsibility, asking you to carry twice your share to prove your worth. She urges you to answer that costume with a calm inventory of truth. You belong without bargaining, and you contribute without vanishing. She remembers a recipe you never wrote down because it lived in your hands. She stirs it now in the air around you so that comfort finds you through the doorway of scent. Hunger for home meets its match in small things made with love. She says mistakes are the fingerprints of learning, not the evidence of failure. You are not the sum of your missteps but the mapmaker who keeps adjusting the lines until the road is honest. Every correction is a blessing with its sleeves rolled up. She says the pain you carry from the last parting does not have to predict the next hello. She holds that doorway open with a patient palm so you can step through without bracing for a blow. She blesses your entrances and your exits with the same compassion. She speaks about money not as a verdict but as a visitor that needs clarity to stay. She asks you to give it a clean envelope, a plan that feels like a handshake, a boundary that feels like a fence with a welcoming gate. Abundance respects the homes that respect themselves. She says the house you live in wants to become a friend. It listens when you move the chair and notices when you open the window. If you speak gratitude to the room that shelters you, it will answer with a quiet that multiplies. She says the future is not a cliff but a series of fields connected by gates you already know how to open. You do not have to leap, you can walk with a rhythm that matches your breath. The horizon is not running away from you, it is waiting where patience meets courage. She says your sorrow has a right to the table, and your joy does too. Neither must banish the other because both are part of the same honest feast. Your heart is large enough to host both without pretending. She remembers words that went unsaid because the hour arrived faster than the sentence. She sends those words to you now and places them in your pocket in a language your bones understand. They translate themselves as warmth when the evening grows cold. She says you have a legacy that is not tied to a building or a bank but to a way of being. It looks like gentleness under pressure and steadiness in the dark. It tastes like kindness that does not advertise itself. She says the mirror has been telling only one story, the surface story of light and edge. She asks you to look long enough for the deeper story to arrive, the one with roots and lineage and a shine that begins behind your eyes. Beauty here is not a costume, it is a truth choosing to be seen. She speaks about the apology you are owed and the apology you are willing to give. She blesses both with the same mercy because both free the world to breathe easier. She crowns you with the relief that follows honest repair. She says your boundaries are a love letter to your future. Every no you speak with grace becomes a yes to something that fits. The shape of your life will thank you for the clarity you practice now. She remembers the day you carried a secret kindness like a lantern under your coat. She saw the way it lit a stranger's face from within. She keeps that moment polished because it tells the truth about who you are without audience. She says your creativity is a river that needs banks, not fences. Give it a time, a place, and a promise to return. The water will meet you there and teach you to listen with your hands. She speaks about sleep as a temple built by breathing. When you enter, leave your armor at the door and trust the silence to stand guard. She keeps the night watch so your rest can become a field for renewal. She says there is someone you have been carrying like a puzzle piece that never fits. Lay that piece on the table and step back long enough to see the picture without it. Space is also a blessing, and endings can be kind. She says your patience is a rope bridge that has held more weight than most would dare. She anchors it on her side with a promise that the boards will steady under your next footstep. You can trust the sway because it belongs to the design. She remembers your tears and blesses them as seeds rather than spills. Some flowers only grow after rain that hurts. She will walk with you when they open, and she will not hurry the bloom. She says the voice that argues with your worth has rehearsed its lines for years. Let it speak and then let it pass like weather across a mountain that does not move. You are the mountain, and you know it when you breathe deeply. She says courage is not always a roar, sometimes it is the chair you pull out for yourself at your own table. Sit and eat and be seen by the day without shrinking. Your presence is not a problem to solve, it is a gift to receive. She speaks about letters you may never send and conversations that belong to the soft hours. You can write them in the language of candor and fold them into the drawer of your heart. They will glow there like coals that warm without burning. She says the future holds a morning when your first thought is not a worry but a welcome. It will arrive after a sequence of small evenings that taught your system to trust again. She is already preparing that morning and laying it gently above your pillow. She says you will recognize a new opportunity by the way your shoulders drop and your lungs make more room. Ease is a teacher too, and it is time to learn from it. Walk toward what welcomes you without cost to your soul. She says you carry a story of protection that traces back beyond memory. It is the reason you survived hours that did not care whether you did. Honor that lineage by living openly now, not as a dare but as a decision. She remembers the way you used to fall asleep in places that were not designed for comfort, yet still found dreams. That resourcefulness still lives in you like a toolkit kept within reach. It will help you build a season that feels like a porch in sunlight. She says music is a language that bridges the distance between rooms of the world. When you hear the right song at the right time, that is not an accident, it is a thread she is pulling through your day. Tug it gently and let it lead you somewhere kind. She speaks about your name as a bell rung slowly, its note traveling farther than sound. She rings it tonight across the field of your life so that every hidden hope lifts its head. Answer with a step that feels like relief. She says your ancestors have been planting shade trees in places you have not reached yet. Their roots are deep and their branches patient. You will sit beneath them soon and feel how planned your rest can be. She says the small animal you saw recently was a messenger wrapped in fur. It did not come to startle but to steady. When the natural world leans toward you, receive it as a nod from an old friend. She says your kitchen wants to witness more easy meals, more laughter that doesn't need permission. The table remembers the sound of plates traveling toward joy. Let ordinary rituals rescue you from extraordinary worry. She remembers your kindness to someone who had nothing to offer in return. She saw how that moment mended a tear in the fabric of the day. She keeps a record of these repairs and reads them back to the dawn. She says your home is safe for your hopes, not only your fears. Put a notebook by the lamp and let your brightest idea sit where you can see it every morning. Brightness needs a perch to sing from. She says you do not owe your old self an endless loyalty when a new self is asking to breathe. Bow to who you were and then open the gate. Growth is gratitude in motion. She says your hands are learning a new craft, even if the world has not named it yet. Keep showing up to the table where materials wait like friends. The process will reveal itself as you move. She says the past is not a chain around your ankle but a shoreline your feet can leave without betraying anyone. Walk toward the inland hills that offer the sound of your own voice. Freedom can be quiet and still be true. She speaks about love arriving like weather that suits your skin. It will not chisel you into a smaller shape or demand your sparkle as rent. It will rest near you and call forth your best without appetite for your light. She says you are not behind, even if your calendar has tried to convince you otherwise. You are right on time for the version of your life that can hold the weight of your gifts. The delay was a carving, not a punishment. She remembers the first time you learned to comfort yourself and blesses that skill as sacred. Keep it, nurture it, and add to it the comfort of community. Solitude and companionship can braid themselves into a rope strong enough to cross any river. She says you will make a decision in the coming season that honors your body, your money, and your time at once. It will look like a simple yes on paper and feel like a reclamation in your chest. Mark that day with a small celebration that tastes like relief. She says the night is not against you. It is a sky that trusts you with stars. When the dark gathers, it does not swallow your meaning, it reveals your glow. She will walk with you until the outline of hope is visible again. She says a letter is already on its way to you in the language of sequence and sign. You will know it by its timing and the way it opens without you forcing it. Welcome it with the same grace you reserve for long-awaited guests. She speaks about your compassion as a force that has shape and consequence. It has changed rooms and altered weather, and it does not always receive credit. She gives it credit now and crowns it with thanks that does not fade. She says to keep something green in your sight, a plant, a tree, even a patch of moss on old stone. Growth in view teaches the body to choose life again and again. Your nervous system learns by seeing what is quietly thriving. She says ritual can be simple and honest. One breath before you speak, one pause before you agree, one glance at the sky before you decide. These small doors open to rooms where wisdom sits with warm hands. She says an old song will return to you and it will not hurt this time. It will arrive like a friend carrying the same melody in a gentler key. Let it teach you that memory can modulate into mercy. She remembers the scent that meant home and brings it to your evening now. If you notice it, say thank you with your chest. Gratitude moves more quickly than any map. She says your future self is writing back to you with calm ink. The letter says you chose well, you rested when needed, you forgave what you could, you released what you couldn't. It says you kept your softness and grew your boundaries. She says you will touch a piece of fabric soon that feels like something from long ago. That texture will remind you that continuity is real and you belong to it. Let that reminder become a blessing you can fold into your pocket. She speaks about endings as doorframes rather than dead ends. Step through with dignity and leave the light on behind you for whoever needs it next. The world benefits when you move cleanly. She says the kindness you show yourself in private is a revolution. It rewrites old codes and teaches new ones to every room you enter. Keep practicing until it becomes your accent. She says you will hum without intending to and realize your chest is lighter. That ease is a message delivered and received. Let it stay without interrogation and let it lead you toward a day shaped like welcome. She says there is a place in your city where the wind turns a corner and smells like the coast. You will stand there soon and feel a door inside you swing open on silent hinges. Freedom is that quiet and that real. She says you may feel suddenly tired after reading this because release uses energy. Rest if you can and let the softness of the evening fold around you. She will keep watch while you do. She says when morning arrives you will notice one task that feels bright and one that feels dull. Start with the bright one and let its glow spill over onto the other. Momentum is a kind of light too. She says your laughter is a lighthouse for someone who thought they had to sail alone. When you laugh, they find a shoreline. Keep laughing without apology when the moment calls you. She says the way you set the table matters because it tells the day you expect nourishment. Put a glass where you can see it and let it remind you that you deserve to be filled. Make space for delight and watch it keep its promise. She says you will hear your name spoken with respect by someone who once did not see you. That recognition will not be an accident, it will be the echo of your growth. Receive it without shrinking and keep moving. She says your mother love lives in you now as a resource you can draw from without running it dry. Use it to care for yourself, your work, your people, your place. The well is deep and the rope strong. She says the moon tonight is a postcard from the other side of the river, stamped with a bright seal. She writes beneath it that distance is real but not ruling. She writes that love outlives every border. She says the next time you notice a small feather, a repeating number, a melody in the market, or a sudden warmth for no reason, remember this night. Remember how the message felt as it unfolded like a soft book. Remember that you are accompanied. She says the last thing she wants to give you tonight is permission you never needed but always deserved. Permission to take up space, to rest, to celebrate, to begin again. Permission to live as if your breath were blessed on purpose. She says she is close, closer than breath, close as your first memory of safety. She is here, in the kindness you choose, in the boundaries you set, in the hope you keep alive with simple, daily choices. She is here, and the here she gives you is bright. She places her hand over your heart and presses a signature only you can read. It says you are seen, you are carried, you are becoming. It says you can trust what is gentle. She turns now toward the doorway that is not a departure but a deepening. She leaves the shawl of her blessing around your shoulders and smiles with a steadiness that steadies you. You are held by more than time. She asks you to close your eyes for a moment and name one kindness you will offer yourself tomorrow. She will meet you at the doorway of that kindness and walk inside with you. She will stay until it feels familiar and then linger anyway. She ends with a promise that has learned to live without fear. She promises to keep writing on the walls of your days with the chalk of small wonder. She promises to be the quiet lift at your back that never demands attention yet never runs out. She says, in this very breath, that you are not alone. She says the message has found its home. She says your life is ready for more light, and that light is already here. She says to rest now, and let the night finish the work that began when your heart opened to this page. She says morning will arrive with proof. She says love remains and multiplies. She brings the final piece of the evening like a soft curtain closing on a tender stage. The audience is your own nervous system, applauding the relief it feels. The house lights rise on a room that knows you are safe. She nods to Archangel Michael, and the air brightens with watchful calm. The message has been delivered, and the messenger is patient. Walk in gentleness, and let gentleness walk in you. The message widens like dawn across a quiet field, and the air learns your name again. A stillness gathers that feels like a doorway refusing to slam. Grace stands beside you with patient hands. She says your heart has been working overtime in the background like a kind engine. It keeps the lights on while you tend every room of your life. Tonight it receives the same devotion it has given. She says a gentle order will return to your days the way spring returns to a trusted tree. Buds appear because the branch remembers how to hold them. Your spirit remembers how to hold joy. She says to choose one small object as a promise to yourself. A smooth stone, a ribbon, a leaf from the nearest tree will do. Carry it until relief feels familiar. She says you already passed a test you did not know you were taking. You chose honesty in private when no one was watching. Heaven noticed and called it courage. She says the next season will honor the quiet investments you made when applause was not available. Roots grow best without a crowd. Your harvest will arrive with dignity. She says your sleep will deepen when you trust the hands that hold the night. She keeps watch with the steadfastness of a lighthouse. Your dreams will practice being safe. She says you are allowed to change your mind without condemning your old self. Growth is an ally, not a judge. You can thank who you were while becoming who you are. She says the sky will send you a sign in a color that feels like a memory. You will know it by the warmth across your shoulders. Let that warmth guide one brave choice. She says that the apology you owe yourself is simple.